The stranger's eyes, as always, were not on the fleeing humans or the ash-covered remnants of vampires. They were on the invisible patterns, the faint distortions that betrayed the presence of something waiting beyond sight. "This place has layers," he murmured, voice low but carrying the weight of certainty. "Not all of it is visible. Not all of it obeys the rules, you know." His brother, moving with quiet precision, nodded, scanning corners and darkened alcoves that seemed to thrum with life. The father's children clung to him, shivering, their faces pale and streaked with tears and ash. He understood finally that this was no ordinary city. Its streets, its buildings, the very air, they were tuned to hide the predatory, the unnatural. And here, in this hotel club, they had glimpsed only the surface. A hidden door behind the bar drew the stranger's gaze. Unlike the others, it did not appear in human perception. It was a seam in the wall, subtle, almost invisible, vibrating faintly in rhythm with the city itself. The stranger's hand brushed it gently, and the air around them shifted, colder now, heavier, charged with anticipation. "Below," he said simply. "The heart of it all." The father hesitated. He glanced at his children, their eyes wide, but the stranger's resolve was unyielding. There was no choice here. The city had drawn them in, and to survive, they would have to follow where it led. With a deep breath, he nodded, gripping a sharpened piece of wood as both shield and weapon. His children mirrored him, fear transmuted into rigid readiness. Together, the group stepped through the door, leaving the faint light of the club behind. The stairs spiraled downward, narrow and carved from stone older than memory, walls slick with dampness that smelled faintly of iron. Each step echoed like a warning, hollow and alive. The stranger moved ahead, confident and unflinching, his eyes catching the faintest disturbances in the air, vibrations, movements, distortions invisible to ordinary humans. His brother followed, silently alert, while the father brought up the rear, the children close to him. Shadows clung to the walls like ink in water, stretching unnaturally, converging and retreating with deliberate intent. Every sense screamed that this was a place that had been waiting, hungry, patient, and cunning. The city above was merely a veil, below was the truth. When the staircase opened into the subterranean chamber, the travelers froze. Machines lined the walls, massive, industrial, humming with a quiet menace that vibrated through the floor and into their bones. They were not ordinary machines. They were designed to process, to consume, to transform. Pipes carried a dark, viscous liquid that pulsed faintly in the dim red light, blood, separated and filtered, moving with terrifying precision. Cages rattled in the corners, the muffled cries of humans barely audible over the steady mechanical thrum. The stranger's gaze swept across the room, noting each detail, each anomaly, each hidden thread of danger. "This," he said quietly, "is the source. The feeding ground. And the ones above are only the beginning." The father gripped his stake tighter, feeling its rough wood against his palm, a tangible anchor against the surreal horror of the chamber. His children clung to him, trembling but alert, as the stranger advanced with deliberate calm. "The predators above were only the scouts," he explained. "This is where the real threat is, organized, intelligent, and patient. And at the center, the one who controls it all waits." As his eyes swept toward a shadowed doorway at the far end of the chamber, the father understood that what awaited them would demand everything: strength, cunning, courage, and perhaps the willingness to sacrifice more than they ever imagined. Somewhere in the darkness, the city watched, and its hunger was only beginning to ripple outward. The clock struck 2 with a metallic clang that seemed to echo from the very walls, as though the city itself marked the hour with deliberate malice. In the underground chamber, time lost its normal rhythm. Shadows stretched, thinned, and thickened with a life of their own, slithering across walls, floors, and ceilings. The faint hum of machines, the blood conveyors, grinders, and filters, grew louder, resonating in the travelers' chests like the heartbeat of a predator. The stranger's eyes, calm and unblinking, flicked across the chamber, noting patterns, anticipating movements invisible to everyone else. His brother mirrored him, silent and precise, while the father clutched his sharpened stake, knuckles white, heart hammering in time with the unnatural vibrations of the room. His children stayed close, the daughter's eyes fierce and alert, the boy trembling yet resolute, both of them understanding that they had crossed a line from which there would be no return. It began quietly, deceptively. A shadow detached itself from a corner, fluid, agile, and silent. A scream followed, sharp and brief, swallowed immediately by another that had already fallen. One by one, the creatures revealed their true forms: pale, elongated, teeth sharper than reason, eyes burning with hunger that no human soul could comprehend. Patrons from the club above, innocent, unsuspecting, were dragged down in seconds, their cries echoing into the machinery of the chamber. The first vampire leapt at a man near the stairs, sinking its teeth into his neck, dragging him into darkness. The father struck immediately, driving his stake with precision into the creature's chest. It dissolved into ash with a hiss that burned the air, a reminder that ordinary weapons could not kill these predators. Only wood, sharpened and driven with intent, could reduce them to nothingness. Chaos erupted. Shadows lunged from every corner, tearing and dragging, their strength impossibly inhuman. The stranger moved like a specter, striking and disappearing, dispatching attackers with surgical efficiency, his stake finding the hearts of those who would not die by ordinary means. His brother followed, swift and silent, their movements a coordinated dance of violence against creatures designed for carnage. The father fought beside them, teaching his children in the harshest possible way. Survival demanded courage and action, not hesitation. The daughter wielded her stake like an extension of herself, eyes flashing as she struck, and the boy, though shaking, drove his stake into the chest of a vampire that had lunged for his father, watching in horror as the creature turned to ash in seconds. The chamber was alive with screams, the smell of burning flesh, and the metallic tang of blood in every breath. Through the chaos, the travelers realized the scale of what they faced. These were not random monsters. They were organized, intelligent, and patient. Each movement of the vampires above had been calculated, a precursor to this flood of violence below. Some tried to flee through hidden doors or ventilation shafts, only to find themselves trapped in mazes of stone that seemed to shift, corridors rearranging like a living thing. The stranger's voice cut through the cacophony. "Stick only. Nothing else works. If you falter, they will consume everything." The father shouted instructions, moving as fast as instinct would allow, coordinating attacks and defending his children, who mirrored his determination even in fear. Ash fell like snow, but for every creature reduced to dust, another seemed to emerge from the shadows, relentless and precise. At one point, the father's heart froze. A vampire, faster, older, more cunning, leapt toward the boy. Time slowed in that instant. The boy's cry pierced the din. The father lunged with striking true, and the creature dissolved into ash. But not before the boy's shoulder was grazed, blood blooming through his shirt. Pain and fear mingled in a way that sharpened the father's resolve. "Stay close," he yelled. Together, they moved as one, a fragile unit of survival against an enemy that had no mercy, no hesitation, and no sense of fear. Every strike, every motion, demanded absolute precision. Every failure risked death, not just for themselves, but for the innocent humans still trapped below in cages, still feeding the machinery above. As the chaos reached its peak, one figure, the lead predator, retreated toward a concealed door at the far end of the chamber. Its movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial, as though it knew the travelers could not yet follow without paying a cost. The stranger's eyes followed it calmly. "It leads to the source," he murmured. "The rest is here to delay us." The father, breathing heavily, understood then that the fight above, the assault below, and the fleeing shadows were only the prelude to something far darker. Somewhere behind that door, the true horror awaited. The one who orchestrated all of this, who fed the city with unseen hands, and who would not be stopped by fear or fire or steel. The travelers' alliance had hardened in blood and ash. Fear had transformed into a necessary weapon, and courage, once abstract, had become precise action.